Hey everyone, welcome. I don't even know how to start this because this is actually our first video. Um, Definitely have seen how it's been done, but it just feels really weird to start with, "Hi guys, welcome to my channel." So maybe in a couple of videos, but for right now, welcome, bunny. Yeah, okay. Welcome. My name is Sherelle. I go by Shell. This is my 8.5-month-old Silas. And I am a pharmacist, a mom, I teach, and I do a lot of different things that folks would probably say has a lot to do with my Sagittarius nature. Just looking forward to connecting with some people similar minded uh, and doing so by sharing our story. I really wanted to just open up about Silas's birth because, well, it's for a couple different reasons. One is that he is our little miracle baby, and you'll find out more why when I start telling you the story. But the other reason I wanted to share is because as a healthcare provider and now as a mom, I realize there are so many things that happen to us that we don't share with each other, that we don't talk about, that we kind of deal with in silence, sometimes suffering in silence, and sometimes just dealing with it in silence. So I thought it could be mutually beneficial if we shared Silas's birth story, right? About how Silas came to be in the world, huh, Bunny? I have a billion nicknames for him. Right now it's Bunny, so. And back to Sai's birth story. So, Sai was born on March 19th of 2020 this year. And the interesting part about that is he was born right before the lockdown in Philadelphia. And it was definitely an interesting time. It was even more interesting because even though he was born in March, he was actually due in May. So he was born a whole 2 months early at 32 weeks. And I guess kind of taking it further back, just so that there's some background and some history and understanding of how we came to have our baby 2 months earlier than expected, was that we found out we were pregnant last year, 2019, around like September timeframe. Um, we did all the things, all the genetic testing. We did all the blood work, the sonograms. Everything was totally normal as far as the pregnancy was concerned. We even were planning on waiting to find out what his gender was until we delivered, and he exposed himself in an ultrasound, and so we ended up seeing his gender maybe like 27 weeks, or it was coming up on like Valentine's Day weekend. And I was going for my routine appointments, and my appointments were on Tuesdays. And I remember that because it was the day that I didn't have clinic, and I like strategically planned it that way. And so Tuesday morning, I go in for my appointment, and my blood pressure was a little bit higher than usual. And so my doctor was a little bit concerned, and she sent me to get lab work done. And the lab results came back. My liver enzymes were elevated. Everything else was normal, but my liver enzymes were a little bit elevated. And I will say they weren't elevated like crazy elevated. They were still within the range that most healthcare providers are like, okay, let's pay attention to this, but it's not scary or dangerous just yet. But at that time, because I was pregnant, elevated liver enzymes as well as some other organ disturbances indicate that a person may be having preeclampsia or early onset preeclampsia. And so my doctor was concerned about that. And my doctor is not African American. She's not a minority. As far as I could tell, she was a white woman, but she was well aware of the statistics as far as African American women and death rates in labor, delivery, the whole pregnancy process. And so she was not taking any chances. And when she saw the liver enzymes were elevated, she sent me to the hospital so that I could be monitored. And so while I was at the hospital, I had a number of tests done to me. And at this time, right, everyone is freaking out. I'm 27 weeks pregnant. They're thinking preeclampsia. I'm black. They think high blood pressure. They're worried about me. They're worried about the baby. So I get an IV put in me. I get a cath placed. I get wheeled to labor and delivery. They're freaking out. They're like, this baby is going to come now. They had a neonatologist come in and speak with us, and she was amazing. That's like a side note. She was fantastic. But I just remember honestly, I remember being pretty calm at that time because I was like, I don't feel any different. Like, I really didn't. I felt completely normal. If not for them telling me that my labs were elevated, my liver enzymes were elevated, I would have had no idea. And so I really just didn't expect the baby to come. In fact, we were having a baby shower in Virginia that weekend, and I was like, so is it possible that I can go and come back? Like, that is how not serious this was to me. My doctor was like, no, that's not what we do. You can have your little baby shower here if you want. Imagine. Over the course of several days of hiding in the hospital, I didn't tell anyone I was there. I think I told like two friends. I didn't even tell my boss I was there. I was still taking patient calls and student calls because I just didn't know how this thing was going to shake out, and I just didn't want to throw a bunch of things on someone else's plate. Bunny. I don't even know where I was, but basically, I wasn't worried. I really wasn't freaking out. Maybe I should have been, but I just wasn't. It just did not feel like it. And honestly, I tend to be a very religious person, and I truly feel like at that time and even up to now, I feel like God was just with me. He was keeping me calm. He was keeping my mind relaxed. He was keeping everything together, keeping the baby inside, keeping my levels at a point where eventually they ended up saying you can go home because there was nothing happening. Originally, they thought they were going to keep me for 2 months until the baby was born. The numbers started to normalize again. My liver enzymes started getting normal, and then it essentially was like, there's really no reason for you to be here. And so they discharged me. But at that time, Dre and I started being prepared that essentially the baby could come anytime after that because once you have like a trigger such as elevated enzymes or any other end organ issues, it's only a matter of time before it progresses to eventually preeclampsia. So we kind of expected that, and that was when we started kicking things into high gear. So first we had our baby shower, which was awesome, and that was fantastic because we got a bunch of baby things. And then we just started kicking it into high gear as far as the furniture, the diapers, the clothes, because we were like, he's probably going to come early now that we know this. Our doctor had told us that ideally, they would want him to come around like 34 weeks, 37 weeks. But after that scare, she was like, I don't know when he'll come, but he'll probably come before that. At that point, I was told that I needed to come in for appointments every week. Prior to that, I was coming in every other week. So I had to go in every week for an appointment, see my doctor, and go to the testing center to give blood for lab draws. And so that was happening every week, and it was at 31 weeks and 6 days. Liver enzymes weren't the issue that time, but my blood pressure was a little bit higher. And they did a dipstick. So they used a little test strip that they stuck into a cup of my urine, and they saw that there was some protein in the urine. And when there's protein in your urine, that really indicates that your blood pressure is elevated, and it's getting to the point where it's affecting your kidneys, because now protein is not supposed to come out of your kidneys. Your kidneys are like a big filter that's supposed to keep that stuff in. And if protein is coming out, it means that something's wrong with the filter, meaning there's like too much pressure and it's making the holes bigger so that protein falls out. And that was just the same spiel that I actually give my students when I teach them about blood pressure in the P1 year. The point is that she found protein in my urine, and that indicated that things were progressing in a negative way. And so I was sent to the hospital at that time, and that time I already had my bag packed. I mean, listen, it was 32 weeks. I'm a healthcare provider, so of course you want your baby to be in there for as long as possible. But I knew once we got to the 32-week mark that we were out of the woods as far as his general health. And so knowing that certainly things can happen at any point in a pregnancy and any point in gestation, once we got to the 32-week mark, I felt a lot more comfortable about his odds and my odds. And so we had our bags packed, we had everything for him. The thing I wasn't prepared for was the NICU stay, which is like a whole nother story. But essentially, at that point, we went to the hospital. They checked us in, and they did everything they did at that scare at 27 weeks all over again. So the 27-week scare was almost like a trial run. It was like the practice exam, because I sized my first. I have never had any experience with birth or labor and delivery or checking into the hospital or the things you're supposed to take. I had no idea. And certainly you can like look all of this stuff up, which I had done a ton of research on, but it's still not the same. Being in the hospital for him was my first hospital stay. I've never even been a patient in a hospital. IVs, like I've never done any of that. So it was definitely a humbling experience as far as, being a healthcare provider and recognizing, what my patients go through when they're on the floors. But I feel like in some ways I appreciated having that scare at 27 weeks because it really helped me to prepare for him coming at 32 weeks. I think if it had just occurred at 32 weeks, I don't know how I would have handled it emotionally because it maybe would have come out of nowhere as opposed to the way that it did happen. What they tried to do was induce me, so they gave me a Pitocin drip. They gave me misoprostol, which is a tablet that is inserted in the cervix. It's supposed to help like ripen it and essentially prepare that area of the body for delivery. My son, very similar to his mother and his father, has a very big head, very stubborn. He did not budge. I don't even mean he kind of moved but got wet. He didn't move. Like, homie was comfy. Our surgeon was just like, look, we're not trying to keep him in there. Like, this is not supposed to be something that's a long, drawn out thing. At that point, induction was done, and I was wheeled onto the surgical floor because I was going to have a C-section. And so that is how Sai came into the world. He is a C-section baby, just like his mother. And actually, I have not said that out loud. I just realized that he and I are both his dad's a C-section baby. His dad was 10 pounds when he was born. Long story short, we had him at 32 weeks, and he was 3 pounds and 12 ounces. So he was a little teeny guy, and he went to the NICU, and his NICU stay was 3.5 weeks. And during that time, we really didn't talk to anyone. We were in our own world. The only people who knew he was born were our parents and a couple of like stray family members that like found out through the grapevine. But we were really trying to keep it low key. And part of that, I think I was embarrassed having hypertension in pregnancy, having a baby that was born early. I just felt like I was a statistic, like another black girl who is unhealthy and having her baby early and he's in the NICU. Like, I think there was just so much shame surrounding that I didn't feel comfortable talking about it. And I think that's part of why I wanted to bring this forward in this format, is certainly getting more comfortable myself, but if someone else sees this and feels more comfortable talking about it or sharing their experience with someone, then I feel like that's a good thing. I wish I had done that. I wish I had felt more comfortable, but I also want to tell whoever is going through something similar that take your time. Sai is 8 months old now, and I'm only just getting comfortable talking about it and telling his story and our story. It may take you longer, it may take you less time, and that's fine. But I hope that this gives you the courage to be able to share it with at least one person that you feel comfortable with when you feel comfortable.